Hey everyone, how you doing? It's Patrick from Vicious Computers and welcome to a new video. Today, if it wasn't obvious from looking at what's in front of me or from finding the video by its title, we're doing a shootout between the top 4 Joy-Con models that I could track down for the OG Switch or the Switch OLED. Let me give you a little bit of background. We just bought a Switch 2, so there's the boxes for the Switch 2 stuff, and I took advantage of the fact that I figured the market would be flooded with used Switch OLEDs because we have the original Switch, but we never had the OLED. I figured this would be a good time to pick up a Switch OLED so I could try it out because I'm not an influencer, I'm just a reviewer and a guy who has a hobby doing this kind of stuff. But when I speak, I want to make sure I always speak from a place of knowledge, meaning first-hand experience. And I could never talk about the OLED Switch because I never had one. And I know right now there's a lot of debate between the Switch 2 and the Switch OLED. Now I have both. I can speak from both without having a biased opinion. However, when I bought this used, it came with original Joy-Cons that had a faceplate swap, so they changed the buttons to a D-pad. And the Nintendo Switch has the honor of being the #1 worst controller that I've ever used in my entire life. I absolutely abhor the Joy-Cons. I hate how short the throw is. I hate how they feel, the drift, everything about them. They're okay to hold onto the system, but they're not good for ergonomics. So I went on the hunt for replacements, my goal being handheld mode, which is another reason the Switch OLED is still kind of winning for me versus the Switch 2 because of the battery life in handheld mode. I hunted and hunted, and I found the highest recommended picks: the Hori Split Pad Pro, the NYXI Hyperion Pro, the Mobapad M6 HD, and the new NYXI Hyperion 2. The problem is each one of these were individually reviewed by somebody, and every reviewer has a different way of thinking, a different way of reviewing. Some of them are sponsored, some of them are not. And if you had any comparisons, which is what really is important, you want one person comparing these, then maybe if you were lucky they had 2 of the 4. Nobody out there had all 4 of these against each other, and that was the information I was looking for, and I couldn't find it. So my favorite kind of videos to bring you is when I was personally searching for something and I couldn't find it, then I become the source of it. I provide that information. So today's video, rather than a long in-depth review for each and every one of these, because they're old now, most people probably are going to be looking for Switch 2 stuff, I'll do one video just to headline the one you should get and why. And then hopefully it's still useful information because I have a feeling that a lot of other people will also be looking on the used market to buy a reduced price Switch. So I made some notes. Nothing is scripted, nothing is sponsored. I bought every single one of these with my own money. And let's get started. So one thing I did like that someone had done was the faceplate swap on this. They changed it from the buttons to the D-pad. I greatly prefer the D-pad because I feel like I can use a D-pad instead of buttons for any button function, but I can't use buttons for D-pad functions. So I think the D-pad is the better choice. The first product that I picked up was from Amazon, and it is officially licensed by Nintendo. It is the Hori Split Pad Pro. It was $40 on Amazon. Let's talk about it. First things first, you slot this guy on. You can tell it's ridiculously larger now as far as holding it or storing it. But this is actually very comfortable. The way that these grips are shaped is very ergonomic on the hand. My fingertips, my hands, my palms, everything has a good place to grip, but yet the triggers on the back, which are added by these paddles, are not easily pressed unless intentionally pressed. It has the least amount of technology. Everything here is still standard membrane technology. These are membrane buttons. This is a membrane D-pad, but everything feels really nice though. All the buttons feel great. The joysticks are dramatically night and day better than what's on the stock Joy-Cons. This D-pad is great for cardinal directions, but it is raised quite a bit. So I don't find it to be amazing for like fighting games where you're trying to do like fireball motion or anything like that with sweeping motions, because it's just a little bit too raised, but at least it has a nice smooth bevel on the edges so it doesn't cut into your thumb. So there's a little bit of play on my left connection when I purposely try to bend these or flex these, but when you're holding it, because of the weight of the console pulling down in the center, they don't move and you don't feel it. I will go refer to my notes to make sure I don't miss anything. So the pros I've got, it was the cheapest. It's only $40. Has a great ergonomic feel to it, and it fits well to the screen, meaning there's not much play. The cons, I said, the D-pad wasn't too great for fighting games because of those motions with how bad it's raised up off the surface. There's no NFS, there's no scanning your amiibos. There's no rumble, and there's no Hall effect for the joystick. Every option on this table, except for this one, upgrades the joystick to magnetic Hall effect so that you don't get joystick drift. Funny enough, I think this might have been a return that somebody sent back to Amazon because it looked like it was taped up with Scotch tape. It worked perfectly for me until about a week. And then I started getting a little bit of joystick drift, just a tiny bit. And when I would disconnect the paddle and reconnect it, the drift would go away because it would like recenter itself. But that is a warning. It does not have Hall effect, so drift is still possible. So if you're upgrading because joystick drift, that may be something to take into mind. However, you can buy 2 of these for the price of 1 of some of the other stuff. So even if it's a risk, you can always buy another one and still end up coming out ahead, possibly, if the features, the fit, and the ergonomics are right for you. We'll circle back around and determine that in a minute. Let's step on up to the next one. The Hyperion Pro. Now we moved up in price just a little bit. I found this one at Walmart for $56. So it wasn't that much more expensive. I think originally it was much more expensive than that, but maybe it's on sale because of the new version. They added some stuff. So this one is a full-fledged wireless Joycon, meaning you don't have to have it connected to the console system. You can play it holding it in your hand wirelessly. It has built-in batteries, it charges, it has built-in LEDs. It added rumble, which is something we didn't have before. And it added motion controls, which is something we didn't have before. So some of the original Joy-Con features are being added back into this next model up. It does have, similar to the Hori, kind of a little bit of a flare, but more pronounced, or sweep, I should say. This very slightly sweeps outward, which gives it a great ergonomic feel. This one is much more dramatic, and the amount of sweep is okay, but the problem is how swollen and the bulbous is the word I want to use. If you were to like cut this out, it almost looks like an eggplant shape, funny enough. And it sits comfortably in your hand, like when you seat it in your palm where it feels like it needs to go pretty comfortably. And it even puts these paddles on the right finger where I don't feel like I would smash them too easily unintentionally, but then you're in the absolute wrong place for everything. The buttons, the D-pad, the joystick. Once you position your hands to those, now your palms aren't really resting on these anymore. And suddenly you realize that the ergonomics aren't that great. First of all, the D-pad is a downgrade, in my opinion. So yeah, it's not membrane anymore, or, well, it's still membrane, I think, but yeah, this is a membrane one. It's clicky, it's raised, but it has sharp edges, meaning this is a very, very painful D-pad to use for anything other than cardinal directions. One thing I'll give them on this one, which was cool, and we'll unbox everything to show accessories in a minute, but just to mention it, it came with 3 sets of the joystick caps. So you can change them out to whatever feels best to your hands. The ones that it came with were okay, but the ones I swapped it to were even better. So I really like these caps. It just so happens to be the same kind of caps that are on the next 2. So even though those 2 don't have the swappable caps, they came with the kind of caps that I like. Referring to the notes on this, so yeah, we added motion controls. It's wireless. It doesn't have to be hard connected. The custom joystick caps, Hall effect joysticks are now introduced. So you will never get drift with these. These are Hall effect joysticks, and they feel great. They feel really good with the amount of tension, the range of motion, the fit and feel. I really do like the joysticks on this. The cons, well, I just mentioned one of them, the terrible D-pad. I mean, like, probably worst D-pad out of everyone up here. Terrible D-pad. The rumble, so we added rumble, but it's terrible rumble. It's actually under the cons section because it's so bad. It is the cheapest, loudest rumble that I've ever felt in one of these kind of controllers. When I was playing Animal Crossing and I'm doing some construction, the rumble was louder than the game sounds, and it felt terrible on the hand. And so I actually turned the rumble off on this because it just is that bad. So even though it has the rumble, it's not good rumble. I said it's too bulbous to fit in the hand comfortably. Now, ergonomics are a personal thing. Everyone has a different size and shape of hand. I'm a guy with probably slightly above average hands as far as like length, but they're not like super like thick, bulky farmer hands. So, you know, a female is probably going to have smaller hands, and some guys are going to have like thicker, girthier hands. So maybe with the guys with the big hands, this might fit you better than it fits me. I don't know. For the ladies or the kids, this is probably going to fit you worse than it fits me, and I already don't like it. So that's kind of the high-end coverage on this one. Let's move into, oh, I didn't mention one thing. Let's actually put them on here. There is a fitment issue. Of all these on the table, these have the worst fitment. There's quite a bit of play, and you actually do feel it when you're playing, especially when you're transitioning from the joystick to the D-pad. That change in where you're putting pressure, the pivoting point of pressure changes, and you'll feel that movement, and you'll hear that movement, and it's not confidence inspiring. I don't like it. When I'm carrying the console, I usually tend to carry it like up, like this, when I need to open or move from one place to another, and I can feel it wobbling around, and it's not secure. I don't like the way it fits on. It's not very good. So that's another con. Of all four up here, this is probably the one that I saw the least amount of coverage on. Not much press, not much advertisements, not much word of mouth. Kind of a sleeper, but I guess for those who really know the scene, this is a known brand. And they have different iterations of it, with this being the most recent one. For this one, I ended up ordering it directly from their website for $75. Let's talk about it. Basically, oh man, I just love even just putting these on. I can feel the friction. By far the best. No movement at all. All right, ergonomics. It has the same type of ergonomics as the Hori, but better. It has the same sort of shape, but the button placement is even better. It doesn't have the giant bulbous swollenness that this one has. So fit and ergonomics, absolutely amazing. But there's so much more than that. We have the Hall effect joysticks, which feel amazing. We have mechanical key switches now. Mechanical everything. Mechanical everything. These are like Omron, yeah, right there, Omron mechanical buttons. We added in all of the switch features that are missing. So now we have NFC, we can scan the amiibos. We have HD rumble, which is the better version of rumble. We have the 6-axis motion, which is in the Hyperion Pro, but now also in here. So basically everything, nothing missing. Let's talk about some of this. The buttons are the smaller, more standard size. You can see they're smaller than the Hori buttons, and ever so slightly smaller than the Hyperion buttons, but this feels really good. If you look at where my hand fits, the thumbstick and the buttons, perfect. I just switch between them. If you look over here, perfect, just switch between them. This is great for cardinal directions. It's a nice click, it's a positive click, but it's not too loud, but amazing for sweeping and fighting games. Like, this is by far, this is actually, I prefer this over a lot of controllers. Like, I might even prefer this over the Pro controller to some extent for the D-pad. And because all mechanical buttons too, man, this is nice. You have extra features that are built into these, like turbo and a button assignment. So you can assign the back button to be one of the face buttons on this one. This one has turbo, and I think it even does partial macros. This one does turbo and like full macros. Like, you can actually program a series of button presses. So, I mean, I can't say enough good about this. Let's just double check the notes, make sure I don't miss anything. I said basically everything about the last two is here, but better. It's more comfortable in the hands. It adds the wireless, it adds the HD rumble, a great D-pad, added NFC. Feels great in the hand. All the original features from the Joy-Cons, but more premium. But I said the Hyperion 2 might stand a chance because honestly, this looked like the most high-end product on paper, especially because the amount of coverage I saw on YouTube and advertising on all the different places you go. So how does it stack up? The Hyperion 2. And here's the thing too, right? These are on the table in the order that I bought them. This was the first one, second one, third one, and fourth one. They're on the table in order of cost, cheapest to most expensive. If I had started my journey here, I would have had these and been happy with these and never known that there was something better. And I would have been on Facebook or on YouTube if I was someone who didn't know how to have an unbiased opinion. And I would have said, these are great, these are the ones you want. And that's what happens. People just speak from assumption and not from a place of knowledge. You really have to get hands-on with everything to talk from a place of knowledge. When I got the Hyperion Pros, I probably would have really liked these. I would have been like, man, these are nice. But after feeling the ergonomics of these, I actually do not like the Hyperion Pro, just for the ergonomics of nothing else. The Mobapad, oh my gosh, this has everything. It just feels perfect, looks perfect, has all the features, and it's not overpriced. So how does the Hyperion 2 stack up? In your hand, it's actually really comfortable to hold it. It feels comfortable when you pick it up. So the first impression is, hey, this is pretty good. Definitely a lot better than the first version. But then immediately you start noticing problems. These buttons are the worst of all of them as far as probably being accidentally depressed. They're too big, and they're not like put in a way that you're not going to put pressure on them just by putting the grabbing pressure on the actual Joy-Cons. So if you're putting any amount of pressure to hold this in your hand, based on where your fingers naturally fit, for at least for my hand, these are easy to smash. You don't have to assign them to anything, so it's not a big deal, but it just doesn't fit right. The next thing is, hey, we don't have the giant bulbous swell. That's why I said it feels comfortable in the hand, but it actually does, despite being comfortable in the hand, have a huge ergonomics problem. The original Joy-Con is way too cramped for anyone except for tiny baby hands. Your input, your interfaces are almost, they're straight above each other. So to move from one to the other is not a natural motion. You have to like squish up your hand, do like a claw grip, and you're putting a lot of tension here, and just to reach this. So you have to either break your ergonomic grip and move your whole hand just to reach this, which isn't quick, or you're squishing yourself up and creating bad ergonomics. This, the Hori, moves those so that they're much more in line with each other, right? And then you got that slight profile that brings the hands slightly into a cant. So between the positioning and the ergonomics, this suddenly becomes very natural and easy. You can hold it in one place and pretty much move between these freely and comfortably. Over here, you got access to the buttons and the joystick, and you see I really can't get to my buttons without my joystick being in the way while I'm holding it in the natural position. Not good. Same thing over here. Slight profile for the cant, moving this stuff in so it's natural. The MOBA, my favorite, tight fit, slight curve, move from one to the other naturally, quickly, and easily. Now, even though we have the right curvature on the back to make it comfortable to hold, the ergonomics are back to being crappy like the original Switch Joy-Con. You can see that there's almost no space between here and the edge, just like the original. And they're almost just right above each other again. So now no longer can you freely, quickly move. You have to start scrunching your hand up again, just like you did on the original Joy-Cons. And you have a flat, fully flat, perpendicular 90-degree, if anything, almost slightly tilted in the wrong direction for the ergonomics on this. And something else to point out, original one has buttons, and like I said, I prefer the D-pad to the buttons because I feel like the D-pad can do everything the buttons can, but the buttons can't do everything the D-pad can. Every single one of these aftermarket performance options, D-pad, 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 why on earth, with the newest iteration of the Hyperion 2, did they go with buttons? All right, my camera just shut down from overheating. Let's try to wrap things up. So, yeah, we were talking about how they changed it to the buttons. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't think it was a logical choice. I'll show you something that might save it a little bit in a second. But also, besides the bad ergonomics, we're back to bad fitment. There's a lot of rattling in here. Not as bad as the first Pro, but not nearly as good as the Mobapad. Again, I can feel it a little bit when I'm moving and playing the game in handheld mode, so I don't really like that. So I didn't actually write a whole lot on my notes for this because I didn't have to. It steps up the price. I got it from Amazon. It was $90. I think it goes as much as $100 even. The reason I didn't spend much time with it is because it was really quickly obvious that it is a downgrade in every way from this. We lost NFC, no more NFC. We lost HD Rumble, take that away. The ergonomics, not as good. The price costs more. The fitment, not as good. So I'm like, I don't see why to even give this much of a chance. So it didn't get used for very long before I decided, okay, I got enough information. It's time to put this review together. So as it stands, just console handheld mode, boom, we covered it. But real quick before we close out, we got the good microphone running over here. We'll do a quick sound test because sound might be important to you. And also what's inside the box might be important to you. So let's go through that real quick. Our SplitPad Pro, despite being the cheapest one on the whole table, actually has a couple of things up its sleeve, right? It is the only one that is officially licensed by Nintendo, which is kind of nice in its own way. But you do get something extra in the box. Even though this controller does not have wireless, doesn't have built-in batteries, it doesn't have any of that feature set that the other ones do, it does come with a wired connector to give you a Switch Pro-like controller feel. And like I said, the ergonomics of this are really nice. Everything feels nice. For the money, I'm super happy with this. And while I definitely would prefer a wireless controller to a wired controller, at least you have it as an extra option. So since I was playing for handheld mode only, that was not a deal breaker that it doesn't do wireless, especially for the price. When we move into the Hyperion Pro, much smaller box, but you also get a connector. It's a very basic, nothing, just a piece of plastic, really, just a piece of plastic. So it doesn't give you charging or anything like that, but at least it gives you a way, since these do have built-in batteries and built-in wireless, to turn it into a controller. So it's nice that that feature is there, but unfortunately, it's not a redeeming feature. It doesn't even have charging. And since we still have all quality problems of this, like the D-pad and everything else, I don't feel like it's a redeeming quality, but just so you know you have it. The Mobapad, pretty good sized box and a pretty good amount of extras. we get on here, the face plates are magnetic and removable. And boom. Magnetic removable faceplates, which means over time, if these get all nasty and grimy, you can probably find replacements. But what that also does for you, they give you some really cool pro-like options. You get an actual D-pad if you prefer the standard D-pad to the disc that you can swap out, and you have different gates that go on your analog stick. Different gates is very much something you find on arcade joysticks usually. It sets the range of motion for your joystick. So right now it's completely circular. There's no notches in there, but then you got octagonal gates, which means you'll feel a little bit of a place where the joystick wants to rest in one of the 8 corners. And that can be really good for people who want a little bit more positive feedback for their directions, especially for fighting games, where like the 360 free range of motion is usually good for like open world games where you're moving a character around. And if you have a color thing where you like white instead of black, you don't have to buy a different controller. You get the white faceplates and you can swap them on there. That also reminds me, I didn't put it in the box, but this one came with the swappable keycaps. If I didn't say it earlier, when my camera died on me, I forgot what I said earlier. So this one comes with 3 keycaps or caps for the joysticks, so you can swap it out for a different feel. The included ones that were on there by default were good. These ones I feel like are great. And then there was another one I didn't like at all. It's just good that you have the option because none of the other ones have the swappable caps. But the good news is, in my opinion, all of them have amazing caps by default, except for this one. So this is the only one that required me to swap the caps out. So that's nice. And the style that's on here, where it dips in a little bit, it's not a huge face and it has a little bit of knurling on the edges, is the exact same type that you have on here and on here. The Hori is the only one that is a little bit different. It doesn't really have the knurling and it's a little bit of a bigger fit. So I really do think this is great for the big hand people, the Hori. But even for small, medium hands, I think it'll be comfortable. So we get all those extras with the MOBA. What does the most expensive guy who took away some of the features bring to the table? This. That's all you get. No swappable things, no center connector like the old model, no changing to the D-pad, nothing, even though it does have the removable magnetic plates. So it's like, why? They're there, but they serve no purpose. And this doesn't even look like it's removable, so it's not like they haven't released a product yet that you can say, upgrade this to at a later time. So as it stands, in my opinion, hands down, the MOBA is the one to get. It has all of the features of the original Joy-Cons while upgrading them in every single way. You get some extra accessories to even increase the value further, and you can customize it for whatever type of game you're playing. It's just amazing. The last thing we'll cover real quick is just a quick sound test in case that you're one of those people that have like a problem with certain sounds, or if you're playing it in certain environments where the sounds can be an issue. The Hori is all membrane, so if you press things slowly, you're really not going to get any sound out of it, except for the release when the plastic comes in contact. So it's a pretty quiet controller, very standard controller. The first Hyperion Pro, it has a very clicky D-pad, but it's still a membrane. It doesn't feel like a mechanical switch in any way, shape, or form. Still membrane buttons, but they're more loud, higher pitched than the Hori. Pretty quiet back shoulder buttons, but loud, hollow, cheap, chintzy, clicky front buttons. So, and then kind of hollow on the back shoulders as well. So this one feels really cheap to me, and I don't like the inconsistency between the buttons. You know, we have smooth and then click and hollow. It just doesn't work well. You step up to the MOBA, everything is mechanical now. So the back buttons, mechanical. Front buttons, mechanical. D-pad, mechanical. Face buttons, mechanical. You have the Hall effect joysticks. The only membrane buttons are your non-used buttons like your plus and your home, the buttons you don't use on a regular basis. So consistent sound, good positive tactile feedback, but not obnoxious. Like you can play this in bed at night or next to someone watching TV, and they're probably really not going to get too annoyed by this or even really notice it, because it's a completely quiet room and it's quieter than me talking. Then you go up to the Hyperion 2. You got the same clicky on the back, but it's mechanical and it's clicky. It's probably even using the same switch, but it wasn't built in such a way that it sounds or feels the same. Again, a little bit more hollow, plasticky, chintzy. You have the mechanical buttons on the front, which are almost identical to these, both the way they sound and feel. But now, like I said, you got this analog stick in the way. And then the same buttons over here, which again are in a bad place. So, you know, the sound on this one's not bad, but just not as good as that one. So I think that should hopefully give you guys the information you needed. Like I said, I couldn't find the information when I needed it, so I made it a purposeful goal of mine to do this for you so that you can have the information I didn't have, and from a trustworthy source. Ask any questions you have in the comments down below. I'll put all the links to everything in the description of the video. Hope you guys enjoyed the content. Once again, this was Patrick from Vicious Computers, and I'll see you next time.